Who is someone that is generally considered a great person, but actually a monster? Write in the comments what you think about it. Who everyone thinks is a normal person but is a monster. Enjoy the show. Story 1, that would be Mickey Mouse. Why, you may ask? Well, you know how they say curiosity killed the cat? Well, in my case, it almost killed my dick. Let me explain. So I was feeling frisky and decided to have a little solo playtime. I had just been cleaning out my childhood toy box and going through all my old stuff to decide what to donate, but one toy in particular suddenly happened to catch my eye. The entrance to the clubhouse looked almost perfect for the circumference of my cock to snugly fit in. So, fueled by a potent cocktail of curiosity, rampant hormones, and a distinct lack of post-nut clarity, my horny ass decided to grab the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse toy and give it a whirl as a makeshift sex toy, and tried to come inside because it was fun inside, just like Mickey Mouse says in the show. With a little of my mom's sunscreen as lotion, it was working pretty well and I was having a great time, but little did I know I had made a fatal mistake. Before I knew it, I was stuck. Like, really stuck. I tried everything to get my dick out of that toy. I even tried pouring oil on it, but nothing worked, not even my mom's sunscreen. I was freaking out, and my dick was starting to turn as purple as Daisy Duck's everyday outfit. Long story short, I had to call the fire department to come and rescue me. When they arrived, I had to explain the whole situation to them. Let's just say they didn't look too impressed. So then I just sat there with a sore dick and a newfound appreciation for the dangers of Mickey Mouse Clubhouse toys. Moral of the story? Stick to the real sex toys, folks. TLDR, came inside and it wasn't fun inside. Story 2, Denise Coates. Bet 365. Hailed as a modern genius of a woman earning a £250 million a year, every penny of which has come from some poor gambler who lost it, plus her brother and dad taking a similar wage. That's a lot of worldwide misery, not to mention the social impact of them replacing that money through crime or misappropriation of their benefits. Story 3. Honestly, I think the lesson to be learned here is that if you want to make it to the top, be rich, be successful, have everything you could ever want, and be respected by millions, you probably have to sacrifice your sanity and a little bit of your soul. That's if you are a good person to start with. I think many of these people weren't great people to start with, and that's how they were able to climb their way to the top. I think success can also get to a lot of people, especially those who are already very confident and have a larger ego. They realized that they could treat people however they want, and people still love them regardless, so it doesn't matter. Of course, this doesn't apply to every person in this predicament, but many. Story 4. Everyone at my job loves my dad. He is a skilled narcissist and was terribly abusive growing up. He did evil things to my sister that kills me inside every time I think about it. I can't say any of this at work and have hidden from everyone that we haven't spoken in years and only see each other at work events. His wife works with me. Story 5. I have always considered Picasso paintings themselves as missing the point of abstractism as a medium in general. In other words, he wasn't a great painter, he just made things interesting enough and jarring enough to the times to be considered a classic. Much better artists out there to study, like Van Gogh, for example. Another complicated man, but undeniably an amazing artist. Story 6. I dare anyone who thinks Christopher Columbus is being unfairly viewed to read his diary and personal letters. He gifted a 9-year-old native girl to a friend to be a sex slave for him. Read the thank you letter this POS wrote to Columbus, detailing how she fought back Italy and what he did to her that made her stop fighting his rape. It makes you want to go back in time with a flamethrower. Story 7. Mother Teresa. Collected donations from people who thought they were building hospitals, when really they were just collecting people to watch them suffer and die, because she thought suffering was important and holy. They didn't treat or heal people, even people who had curable ailments. Story 8. Am I the only person who thinks Taylor Swift? People obsessively worship her, but especially for a supposed feminist, she only speaks up about events that impact or benefit her directly. Not to mention, there's no such thing as an ethical billionaire. With that kind of empire, there's definitely people being exploited in some way or another that they could change but choose to ignore for their own gain. Story 9. Charles Dickens. An asshole of legendary proportions. Wished he could exterminate Indians. Tormented his wife Catherine, belittled her, called her ugly, and worse. When he met a teenage actress he wanted to bone, he threatened to have Catherine institutionalized, in order to keep things low profile. She left with their youngest of 10 children. allowing the oldest girl to run the house for the others, hoping the consistency of remaining where they were would keep shame from them. He then bashed her to no end, essentially telling the world she was a horrible person, a no-good mother who walked out, etc. It affected how people treated her whole life. I bet he had a really little dick. Story 10. Barack Obama. One of the biggest pieces of shit that Americans ever voted in to becoming president of the United States. His healthcare plan benefited no one besides him and the rest of his reptile goons that sucked money out of everyone that was dense enough to believe that Obama was a healthy choice with any of the many broken promises that he made to Americans. Having a fake birth certificate and a fake wife who was actually a man with a 2-foot cock. Americans basically chose a terrorist as their president. Obama had a famous phrase that he never failed to repeatedly say hundreds of times a day. The phrase, "Yes, we can." This phrase he said spelled backwards is "nak you say." In Arabic, the phrase "nak you say" means to serve Satan. Obama is a devil-worshipping demon who was not even born in America. He was basically a terrorist with a badge who destroyed America and its people. And he still runs this country to this day because Biden is under the authority of his puppet master, Barack Obama. Story 11. Christopher Columbus. Also, Mother Teresa. Mother Teresa was a beloved but also controversial figure. Critics pointed to poor conditions in her hospices, lack of medical care, and an emphasis on suffering over relief. Questions were raised about financial transparency and her opposition to abortion and contraception. She also faced criticism for accepting donations from questionable sources. Despite this, she was canonized by the Catholic Church and remains a symbol of charity to many. Story 12. My husband who cheated on me admitted to looking at other women in Thailand. He came home from his business trip and asked for a divorce and refused marriage counseling. Didn't even notify me or express to me that he was having problems with me. We dated for 9 years and married for 8 months. He's a great guy to his friends, but a horrible partner. That's why everyone didn't believe me when I said my husband cheated on me. A true monster manipulates everyone around them to think they are great when they're not. Anyways, I'd publicly out him on here if it was legal. The kicker, he is delaying our divorce from going through. I'm currently waiting on him to finalize the last of everything because I've done everything on my end that I've needed to do. The lesson: don't marry someone unless you're absolutely sure that they love you and would die for you. This man did not show me an ounce of the amount of love I had for him, but I thought it was all normal. It is not normal for a man to have mixed emotions about you, to be unsure about you, and to make you be someone you're not. Run if he does not reciprocate the love you have for him. Story 13. Thomas Jefferson. Dude seriously wrote all men are created equal, and that all people have an inherent right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And then not only was he not an abolitionist, but he regularly raped his black slaves and disowned and enslaved his black children. Yeah, the guy was extremely smart and a talented writer and a good leader. He had a lot of admirable qualities. But I just don't understand how a single person can contain so much cognitive dissonance without exploding. Story 14. Mother Teresa. The great work she did was a media campaign by the Catholic Church. In reality, she was a sadistic and arguably racist woman who manipulated and reveled in the suffering of others. The medical care she is said to have provided was practically non-existent, and doctors said the conditions were unhygienic and unfit. She had a particular conception of suffering and death and let people die without medication, not even painkillers. People often died in her care that were not initially terminally ill. She also had a persistent ulterior motive to convert as many people as she could to Christianity, and there are many reports of dying people being forcibly baptized. There is something beautiful in seeing the poor accept their lot, to suffer it like Christ's passion. The world gains much from their suffering. A direct quote from Mother Teresa to Christopher Hitchens. Story 15. 80% of celebrities. Even with pedophile rape charges and trafficking charges, PPL will still defend their favorite singer-actor because I can like their art and not like them. No, TFU can't. Regardless of where you download their music or buy the merchandise, you're still fucking supporting them. And in the worst way possible, financially. My current TikTok beef is with some kid, I'm in my early 40s, so when I say kid, I mean early 20s, mid-20s, who worship Jimmy Urine of mindless self-indulgence. Even after I linked multiple articles stating he's been charged with sexual battery of a minor, this idiot doubles down, stating I can like their music without liking them. Just admit that you support a pedophile and get it over with. Story 16. Mother Teresa, sanctified. Yet she kept her patients in squalor, claiming that only through suffering can they expect to find the kingdom of heaven. Caroline Flack, the Be Kind movement here in the UK, after she took her own life, claiming that people were nasty to her. The reason they were nasty to her was because she hospitalized her boyfriend, splitting his skull open with a bedside lamp when she was in a mood. Caveat: it is still tragic that anyone would feel the need to resort to suicide, and I don't feel any joy in the fact that she, or anyone, feels that this is their only way out, but at least accept that she was not nice. Similarly, Lady Diana Spencer, I refuse to call her by her assumed title as she was never given it, but she looked all innocent and lovely, but was a horrible person to her staff, witnessed firsthand, and had a long line of gentlemen callers during her marriage to Charles, from beginning to end. Hitler, he was a good painter, but I hear he did a couple of sketchy things too. Story 17. Bing Crosby was another beaut. Great singer with a great voice, rode pictures with Bob Hope, a tyrant at home who beat his kids regularly and mercilessly. The character of a man, women included, is not what they do publicly when everyone is watching, but what they do when no one is looking or there is nothing in it for them. Swine! Story 18. Joe Biden. He acts like a helpless old man and no doubt has some dementia issues, but he is a big criminal. Nobody on his Democratic side looks at his crimes. He has taken money from our enemies, put our country in peril, and has a lot of immoral things he has done. He focuses only on Trump, but he is a bigger hypocrite. People need to wake up and see what a traitorous thug he really is. Story 19. Woodrow Wilson. I read the book, The Great Influenza, about the 1918 pandemic. The book was a bit tedious regarding the pandemic stuff. The book covered the actions Woodrow Wilson took during WWO as well as the pandemic. However, I could not believe just how evil Wilson was and so controlling. He was truly awful. Then there was Margaret Sanger, a full-blown racist and eugenicist. Notice that no Planned Parenthood facility is named after her? Story 20. Kamala Harris. Her family was part of the problem with the caste system in India, and they immigrated when their system was torn down. But what they took with them was the ideas, because the people spearheading the takedown of the caste system came out as the new top of the new caste system. So watch everything she says because she is just trying to set herself up on top of the pyramid by throwing whatever the hot flavor of blame of the month is around. Just because she is vice president doesn't mean she is a good person. Just because you agree with what she says doesn't make her a good person. Just because she says it doesn't make what she is saying true, etc. Story 21. This doesn't answer the question, but I was reminded of something. I took an MBA class years ago. The professor asked each of us to name a great leader. People responded with the normal list: Gandhi, Washington, Lincoln. When it was my turn, I said Hitler. Several people gasped. I didn't realize what had happened until later. When he said great, my mind took it to mean effective. Everyone else took it to mean good, benevolent, selfless, etc. So when I saw the word great in your question, I immediately thought, is it effective or good? Story 22. The adoptive parents I was placed with were horrible people. We were being sexually abused and beaten, and he was even sleeping with his own mentally challenged blood daughter from his first marriage. Nobody, and I mean nobody, believed any of us kids, not even teachers. Teachers would say you're lucky to be fed and have a place to sleep. Your parents are good people taking in all you kids. We all either ran away or moved out as soon as a judge would sign the emancipation papers. When I moved out, I never spoke to them again, and when they died, I felt happy and was able to let go finally of all the hate I had for them. Story 23. Has anyone said Mother Teresa yet? Feels like she seemed to think Jesus was some sort of starving eldritch monster that needed to consume souls, like something straight out of an H.P. Lovecraft story or something, severe racism and all. So starting her death clinics and basically bribing sick and dying people to say the right "I give my life to Christ Jesus" words right before they lost consciousness, while she and her fellow nuns stabbed people with dirty needles and force-fed them slop, was all just a way to feed fresh souls to the starving Jesus monster from a vision she had. Story 24. Gandhi. The peace he advocated for were only for white Indian men. He wrote to the natal parliament in his early years about how there is a general belief amongst the colonies that Indians are better, if at all, than savages or the natives of Africa. He wrote to officials to segregate schools, stating the problem was too many Africans, and they shouldn't be mixing with Indians. Not to mention the many times he stated whites and Indians were superior to all other races, and how whites should be the predominating race in South Africa, as Africans are just troublesome, dirty, and live like animals. Let's not forget the time he said the Jews should have all committed mass suicide during the Holocaust to shame the Germans, believing this would shock the world to make the Holocaust stop, and that they all died anyways for nothing. He also became the lead recruiter of Indian soldiers to join the British Army during WW1 and WW2. He was also sexist and saw women as beneath men. He had a messed up desire to prove his abstinence and celibacy to the point where he would abuse his power to get young girls naked with him as they slept together in bed to test his self-control. In his 70s, he forced his grandniece in her late teens to sleep naked with him as well. Story 25, Emperor Augustus, Octavian, Rome's first emperor. During his rise to power with the Second Triumvirate, they released a list of names that sanctioned murder bounties. Scores of political enemies were killed by roaming gangs so that their property could be taken. Orphaned children with wealthy inheritances were also killed. One account tells of a boy's tutor at a he school desperately trying to hold back a gang before he and the boy were both cut down. Story 26. Abraham Lincoln, on record as saying, "If I could save the Union without freeing any slave, I would do it. And if I could save it by freeing all the slaves, I would do it. And if I could save it by freeing some and leaving others alone, I would also do that." So yeah, the Civil War wasn't necessarily about slaves. FDR, when Hitler was asking the other countries of the world to take in Germany, Europe's Jewish population, even telling these leaders that the Jews would be executed and going as far to send them out in ships regardless, FDR refused, stating that they were a threat to national security, all because one guy named Herbert Karl Friedrich Bahr was caught as a supposed spy. In June 1939, the German ocean liner St. Louis and its 937 passengers, almost all Jewish, were turned away from the port of Miami, forcing the ship to return to Europe. More than a quarter died in the Holocaust. Story 27, Mother Teresa, the so-called saint who supposedly cared for the poor, sick, and wretched of India. In fact, she did no such thing. Her hospitals were little more than warehouses of human misery. You see, Mother Teresa believed that suffering was good for the soul. So she withheld treatment and medication so that her patients could be closer to God. All that money she raised? Yeah, she hoarded most of that. Very little was ever actually used to care for people. Instead, she let people wallow in filth and sickness while she soaked up the accolades of the world. But when she got sick, it was a very different story. Only the best Western medicine would do for St. Teresa. She was a mean, petty, selfish, trivially moral, tyrannical monster who sold the public an image that was entirely fictitious. If there is a hell, Mother Teresa is burning in it. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked the video, like it, be sure to write comments and share your stories.